Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome to this evening's Warrant Committee, September 13th. I'm very glad that we could all make it. We have our quorum, and if Lynn, would you take the roll, please, and then we can begin?
Sure. We have John, Kathy, Dave, George, JJ, Erin, Steve, Emily, Kristen from the Warrant Committee. We have Town Council Kevin Freitag and Select Board Member Mike Zulis.
Very good. Thank you all. Our first order of business is to accept the meeting minutes of August 9th, 2021. They've received, I believe, a revised copy of those, which includes a listing of the documents we reviewed, draft article, etc. Are there any changes or amendments or modifications to those minutes? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to accept those minutes as presented, the modified minutes for August 9th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to accept the modified minutes of August 9th.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Erin. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lynn, can you take the roll, please?
Sure. John?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
JJ?
Abstain, wasn't there.
Erin?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Henny?
Abstain.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. The motion passes. Our next item, we have two articles that we've listed on the agenda, one of which is for the budget revisions that the Select Board is putting forward to modify the budget that we approved, which the town meeting approved at the annual town meeting. We will table that one as we do not have the input from the Select Board. They have not finalized those recommendations and revisions for us to review. There's still a pending discussion with the school committee and a few other departments. We sent around that email chain that discusses why they're not ready. So we'll have to table that at least for one meeting, hoping that they will be able to get those items resolved and give us the opportunity to discuss and review their revision recommendations in time to incorporate them into the warrant for the October special town meeting. The other item that we've been waiting on is the allocation for the broadband funding article, which we have already discussed, and we're happy to have Mike Zulis from that committee, who's a member of the Select Board, to give our present. I think you've also received the memo that discusses the allocation, but Mike, we're very happy to have you here to give us the rationale of how this has been divided and how much is coming out of the broadband fund and how much is coming from other funds that have been made available to the town through other sources. So, Mike, you have the floor.
Thank you, George. And I'll try to be brief, and you'll let me know if I'm not being brief.
No, you are always listen. You know you've got your 7 minutes. You never exceed that. So take it away.
All right. Give me the high sign at 6 minutes. The short answer is that the broadband committee and the select board have recommended that the amount appropriated from the PEG access and cable related fund for the purpose of designing, building, and deploying a town-owned fiber optic network is $350,000. Just very briefly, as a recap, the iNet is the fiber optic network that serves town departments, schools, and public safety agencies. Currently, that network is owned by Comcast, and we use it pursuant to an agreement with Comcast. That agreement is a 5-year agreement and can be extended 5 more years. The agreement also can be terminated by the town with 90 days notice as of next April. The agreement provides that I just want to get it in front of me. Where is it? Hold on. Oh, here it is. the agreement provides that Comcast isn't obligated to expand the INET, to replace the INET in any way, and to compensate the town if the INET that comprises that fiber reaches the end of its useful life. And that INET has been used by the town for approximately 19 years. According to the consulting report that we had in 2019, that INET has been used by the town for 17 years. It consists of a six-strand fiber network, of which the town uses a portion. The recommendation from the consultant, CTC Technology and Energy, is that for the use of the present and in the future, that the town should develop a fiber optic network with 288 strands to allow for the expansion of various areas into town departments, schools, public safety, and also as possibly in the future for town residents. So that's the INET, current and proposed to be built. There is one funding source that this article is seeking funding from, and that is the PEG Access and Cable Related Fund. That fund is funded by the license fee from Comcast that it pays to the town. 5% of Comcast's gross revenue from its services to residents are remitted to the town to this fund. Of that 5%, 4.6% goes to PEG Access, public and educational, the public and educational channel and government channel access for their needs. And then that 0.4% goes to this PEG Access and Related Fund. That fund was developed, that fund was created, the amounts of money were collected for several years, but pursuant to legislation, that fund was created by town meeting in 2019, and the uses of the fund, consistent with the agreement with Comcast and with and statute, include support of public, educational, and government access cable television services, which is exactly what, or part of what the INET provides pursuant to the agreement with Comcast that I mentioned, the agreement by which they provide the INET to Milton. So the request is to use a portion of those funds to build, design and build a municipal INET. The consultant from 2019 estimated that the high-end costs for that build would be $982,000. We are, given the fact that it's been 2 years, we round that up to $1 million in terms of what we think the cost would be. And so I think you're going to see the select board get a request from the Municipal Broadband Committee to appropriate $650,000 of ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act funds, to fund the balance of that build. And as a reminder, you all know that the ARPA funding can be used for three infrastructure needs: sewer, water, and municipal broadband. So that would be the request. So why is the Municipal Broadband Committee and the Warrant Committee recommending $350,000 from the PEG Access Fund? Well, we went back and asked for a rundown of the fund since it began and since it was set aside in 2017. That's the records that we had from the finance director. And the balance forward beginning in 2017 was $371,000. And you will see when you review the summary of revenues and expenses from that fund, that the fund increases roughly $25,000 to $50,000 a year, such that at the end of 2021, just passed June 30th, 2021, the amount in the fund was $741,552. The Municipal Broadband Committee and the Select Board recognizing that this fund is supposed to be used for several things, including the support for public educational and government cable-related services, doesn't seek to deplete this fund fully in terms of designing and building a municipal fiber network. And in having discussions with the finance director, we think that the prudent amount to use from this fund is $350,000. That is the amount that was in the fund starting in 2017, a little bit less than that, and it would leave a balance of approximately a little less than $400,000 in that fund to be used for those purposes, for capital needs, for other needs, for cable-related services. And so it was the view of the committee that the appropriate amount to use at this point is $350,000. And I think I'm under my 7 minutes, and I will throw it back to you, George.
As usual, right on point. Mike, 2 questions from the chair.
Yep.
As you take the $350,000, leaving approximately $400,000, first question is, what is the average amount that would be coming out of the fund each year for normal things that would not be related to the construction?
If you go through the fund, it's very sporadic. Some years
Yep.
has been nothing that have come.
Yep.
I'll just read them to you. In 2017, there was a capital outlay of about $7,000. In 2018, we show no capital outlay.
Yep.
In 2019, we show a capital outlay of $38,000.
So we're looking at small amounts of money. This was established, in my time on the Warrant Committee. I remember when we did this, we all thought it was a great idea, and I still think it is. I think generally speaking, the amounts that come out as sporadic would not be exhaustive of the fund, even if we take out the 350 and recommend the town meeting to do that. So the second question is, as we are constructing this network and working through, what will the revenue be into this fund while the new system is being constructed? It would not change, would it not? Would it?
Won't change
Okay.
at all. This
So
revenue.
we're still looking about $50,000 a year.
Yeah, this revenue is from the fees that the Comcast gets from residents, so that shouldn't have an impact at all.
Okay, so we're still going to have stuff in there. We'll still have a little bit of a kitty if things come up.
Yes, and there was there was one part of that fund as part of the contract negotiations with Comcast in 2000 that ended in 2019. Comcast agreed to pay the town $400,000 for just capital needs, of which $350,000 went direct to MPEG, and $50,000 remained in this fund, but it's just for facilities and equipment. So that $50,000 is set aside. So that's another reason we want to make sure that we don't unnecessarily deplete that fund or use it improperly.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Dave, you have your hand up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Zullis. This is Dave Humphreys. This is a little off of the conversation that we're having now about this particular warrant article, but I just have a general question that just occurred to me now when you were talking about how these funds are allocated locally. And the question I would have would be with regards to our Milton local access television. If we were to go to this plan, what effect would that have on our Milton local access television?
Yeah, so it's a good question. It could have no impact, or it could have a very positive impact, because as the CTC report cited, we have no ability to expand our fiber network or to change our fiber network or enhance our fiber network under the current Comcast-owned services that are provided. If we own it ourselves, it opens up a lot of opportunities, including, and as pointed out in the CTC report, to the extent that we have needs for traffic cameras and other things, and also for MPEG, for cable access. We'll have more strands, we'll have more opportunity, we'll have more opportunity for perhaps cable access to expand their services. So it would at least continue the baseline. And then when you have 288 strands, it gives you a lot more opportunity. It seems to me, I'm not an expert, but it seems to me you have a lot more opportunity.
That's great. It's also a frightening concept. We could have the Milton Warrant Committee Follies as an addendum, as a show on Milton Access Cable. God help us. Okay, Dave, does that answer? Terrific. Thank you. Kathy, you had your hand up next, please.
Yes, thanks, Mike, for your explanation. Just a quick question. So it's great, I think, that we have two sources of funds that we can tip into for this. And I'm just wondering where the opera funds can be used for sewer, water, and also municipal broadband. Is there anything else in queue that you would prefer to use that opera funds for and take more money out of the PEG access?
So we had some. It's a good question, Christine. We had some discussions with the town administrator and with the director of finance, and they're comfortable with this amount, given the projects that they see and the potential things coming down the line. I mean, we're talking about receiving perhaps this month or next month from the county the first part of our $5.5 million, so the $2.75 million. And then next year receiving the second part of our 2.8 million directly to the town, so it'd be 1.4, and then the second part of the 2.75 from the county. So the town administrator and the director of finance are comfortable with this amount, as I understand it, and as they've told us for broadband. And again, we wanted to be conservative with this account. We didn't want to unnecessarily deplete it. The other option for funding, and frankly, what we may have suggested if there wasn't a cable-related fund, and if there wasn't ARPA, we probably would have been before you suggesting bonding. But this takes out the need for bonding. The fact that we have this fund available and the fact that we have ARPA available takes out the need for the bonding and the bonding costs.
I think that's very positive because we're going to have to look at a significant bonding amount when we do the fire station construction project. So anything that keeps our flexibility going, I think is something that we should be very happy about. Kathy, that's a great question because I know that there's been a great discussion about sewer upgrading around town. And if that cash that's coming in from the county and then the additional money that's coming in from the feds is being earmarked at this point for that sort of thing, and this can be used for broadband, I can't help but think that it's a good thing at this point.
Right. I just want to make sure that it's a use it or lose it type thing. I don't want to make sure that we're not leaving anything on the table. So if we could take more out of the ARPA, that would be fine. But if we have other projects coming in, that's good.
I think that's Christine. I think that's. I'm sorry, Kathy. I keep calling. I have Christine.
That's okay.
I'm thinking of Christine Gimmer. So Kathy, I think that's going to be an ongoing discussion over the next year and a half about what projects we've already appropriated. Select Board's already appropriated that $1 million for the sewer project, the W21-1 project. It's a water project, really, down near Belvoir. And so that helps us. That helped us with the MWRA. It gives us more room under the MWRA zero interest loan for other projects for sewer and water that we need in town. So that's the first amount that we've gone ahead and appropriated. But that's going to be a discussion. Every time we have an idea, we have if we have a discussion about appropriation. I know it's the intention of the Select Board to come before the Warrant Committee and discuss it with the Warrant Committee. And even though the Select Board is the appropriating authority for ARPA, we want to get the feedback from this group and from the residents. And we did that with that water project in August. And so I know that that's going to be an ongoing discussion for the next year and a half.
Okay, thank you.
Terrific. JJ, you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thanks for your explanation. Appreciate it. I was just wondering, how much is the maintenance going to be on the new system that you built? Do you have any idea about that?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've started digging into this, and if I can share my screen, let me make sure I have it on here. I can show you two slides on where we are on digging into that. If you want to make me a, if you want to make, if you want to, if you want to make me a screen share, I can do that, or I can explain it to you, either one.
Lynn, do you have control to make the screen available, Mike?
I do, but it's not second nature. Just give me 1 second.
Okay. While Lynn is doing that, we'll have one more item that we'll need to discuss after this, and that's to assign the comment for this recommendation to the town meeting when we take our vote, now that we have the amounts. And so whoever is disposed to writing the comment, please think about it as we go through. So when the time comes, the willing victim will come forward willingly. Sorry, I shouldn't use the same adjective, but it's, what can I say? Here we go. Mike, take it away.
Okay, so with the caveat that this is what we have so far, and we need to dig in some more of the numbers with the town accountant. So the CTC report laid out potential expenses, and they hadn't dug into a lot of it with the finance director, but the CTC report laid out potential expenses for $108,000 a month, right? Now remember, right now we're paying Comcast $12,000 a month, and we also need to dig into what our indirect costs, because we don't really have a handle in what our indirect costs are for that, in addition to the $12,000. So that number, $12,000, may go up based on indirect costs that we have. But what we have updated, and that's in the line B, we've gone through and said, okay, well, we'll accept all of these, the ticket locates and ticket processing, and the insurance we're not sure about. We're not sure if we already have coverage under that. CTC estimated 25,000. We're not sure if that number comes out and stays in. The other numbers stay in until you get to contingency. This was an expense related to construction, which wouldn't be applicable after constructed, excuse me. So that comes out. And then the GIS support, we already have the GIS function in Milton. So then that comes out, right? That was a salary line item. So we're down to 42,000. If the 25K for insurance comes out, then we're down to 17,000. It may or it may not. And we need to refine these costs to make sure. So, but what balances that is the potential revenue items.
Revenue is huge.
And this is all, these are all items. This is the potential that was laid out in the consultant report. And these are estimated numbers. But we looked at it in terms of two potential revenue sources. One is a one-time fee for dark fiber, which is basically letting institutions use their strands, and then ongoing maintenance, right? The maintenance may or may not be be a complete markup, because we have to mark up our services. But the conservative numbers that we're showing, if we have 3 customers, right, we're talking about additional payments of $221,000, about $73,000 a customer, and then ongoing maintenance fees, again, depending on how we set up maintenance, whether it's a pass-through or whether we mark up a maintenance organization that provides it for us, or whether we do it ourselves, which I think is less, the committee is less inclined, I think, to develop a service organization and suggest hiring, but it's possible. The ongoing maintenance fees would be, as is shown there, about $37,000 a year. So this would be potential revenue that could offset any of the costs of any of the operating costs of the system. And if I can quickly find it, I'll read you what was stated in the CTC report about the potential for revenues. Well, I'm not going to find it quickly, but But suffice it to say, we think there are opportunities, and the consultant who wrote the report thinks there are opportunities for revenue from the strands of fiber that you have. Again, institutions, perhaps Milton Hospital, perhaps Milton Academy, perhaps Curry College. Those are institutions that may become customers or may lease out some of our fiber. So I hope that gives you kind of a picture of the question.
Mike, what is the baseline for revenue X the additional customers that are potentially there that the town can expect to generate from this system once it's up and running annually?
Well, it all depends on how many strands you lease out, if I'm understanding the question, George. You know, if you don't have any, you know, it's zero, right? If you don't lease out anything, and if you lease out to three, right? If you lease out 3 strands, then you have what's estimated there.
Okay, so general customers that would be the residents of the town.
No, it could be any institution. I mean, probably an institution in town, but we're not talking about. This isn't residents. This isn't fiber to the home. This is an institution that says, hey, I need fiber. Like we do now with Comcast, right?
Like we do now. Okay,
right
that's
now
what I wanted to know. Okay, that's what I want to know. This is total institutional use. There's no residential component that would be ancillary to this. Okay, fine.
Exactly right. It's exactly right.
Okay, good. That's what we needed to know.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a quick question?
Please.
Mr. Zulus, can you go back to the other slide, the first page of this?
Yep.
When you were explaining it, you said that it was $108,000 a month. I think you mean
annually. Yeah.
Please tell me that's annually.
No, that's that's annual.
Total expenses right there.
No,
that 108.
No, that's annual. That's annual.
Okay.
Annual.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for the clarification. So, Mike,
thank you very much. Yeah. What's up?
On that slide, Mike, if we're assuming the monthly cost, the annual cost at $42,000 x the GIS support, and if the insurance comes out, this $42,000 is the max as at this estimate, and with all the inputs that you have, and could actually be under the $42,000, somewhere between 17 if the total insurance figure comes out, or some component thereof.
Right, and with the caveat that we're still digging into this, and this is what we have at this point. Again, on the existing side, we have $12,000 to Comcast, and then we're still digging into the indirect costs. We don't know. We don't really have a fix on those yet to see what our real costs are right now. And then yes, on this side, if this fleshes out the way we think it's going to go, and again, it could change, but you're talking about somewhere between 17 and 42.
Okay. Further questions?
Yep. Can I just follow up on this slide really quick?
Did it.
Thanks, Mike. I guess I'm just wondering, how come the maintenance fees go up with customers? Is it like in your next slide, you have maintenance fees increasing with the amount of customers? Wouldn't it be a fixed cost? Like the fiber is the fiber, right? Like why do the annual maintenance fees go up?
So if I understand your question, we're charging those fees. We're charging the same fee to each customer, right? So it all depends on how many customers you have.
Okay, so when you say annual maintenance fees in your one customer of $37,908 and two $75,816, you're saying you're charging your customers revenue and annual maintenance? Is that what you're saying?
So, as I understand this, and this is what we've determined. There's an initial upfront cost, right? That's the year one cost, right? That's the one-time fee that you can get from a customer, right? And then there's the annual maintenance after that, right? So
okay.
You see what? And this maybe the slide isn't that good because, but you know, we did the best we could. But this is the way we're seeing the market right now, in terms of pricing, and what we could potentially get in revenue.
No, I understand it now. I just got messed up by this maintenance.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not as clear as we'll do better when we get to town meeting.
Is
Okay.
everybody clear now on how this all shakes out? If not, now's the time to ask because we're going to have to bring this up to a vote.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. It's
Please,
Steve Meister. Yeah, so we currently have 6 strands of fiber and you go into 288 strands.
Yep.
It seems like a huge increase in capacity. And is that like a standard cable size? Is that how it comes, or it just seems like much more than needed?
So it is much more than we need now, but this is something that will cover us for the foreseeable future, right? And the recommendation from the consultant was that this is the standard cable size, right? So
Okay.
you're not paying that much more you're not paying more for 288 than you would have paid for 100.
Okay,
Right?
thank
So
you.
it's a de minimis cost for the additional amount given the cable that you're putting out.
Okay, thank you.
I think that a good analogy, just to drive it home, would be, when some of us bought these, wonderful old homes in town and discovered that they had 60 amp service. Well, 60 amp service was great when the house was built in 1900. And so for use in the 21st century, for example, I upped mine from 60 amp to 400. It's way more than we needed at the time, but, ultimately you grow into it. And I think that, so if you do the 60 amp house and you have an electric stove and you have a hairdryer and you put a stereo on, it's not a surprise that you'd be blowing fuses left, right, and center when you put a few more electrical appliances on there. Such the same when you have fiber optic cable or other cable that is built in 1985 and in use in 2021, and you're already at capacity and you're over capacity. Who knows what we're going to need it for in the next 30 years.
Yep.
So to expand to this level, I think sure, it looks like we're overbuilding, but if the Southeast Expressway had been built for 2021 traffic when it was first built in 1954, none of us would be complaining every time we look at the on-ramps.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I can read you directly from the consultant's report on this in their recommendation of the 288 fiber cable. A 288 count cable will provide the strand capacity needed to connect all the sites, and that's all the town sites in Milton, using low-cost electronics, and will leave spare capacity for future uses. In the future, if additional fiber is needed, the town can establish aggregation sites, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what the consultant recommended in terms of the number of strands.
Okay, Christine and Kathy, I see hands up. I don't know who was first.
I just have a quick question. On the previous slide, what is GIS?
That's global. That's the satellite. It's what Alan Bishop does now, and I can't remember the GIS. It's the mapping that it's the mapping support for the mapping that we have with Alan Bishop, and I frankly don't remember why.
It's geographical information systems. It's
Thank you.
GIS mapping.
Thank you. Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron. You beat me to it, but that's good. Yes.
It's Google. Thank Google.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you're faster than the rest of us, so good for you. Okay, Christine, continue.
Why do we already have that for what, our existing system?
So Alan Bishop does that for the town. He's created all the maps for the town. He's able to do that. So we think we have that support already covered.
Alan Bishop, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
Who's Alan Bishop?
He's in the engineering department
I see.
at the town, and he's created all the mapping for the town. We have all GIS mapping for the town now in the last, I'd say, 6 months. And I think it's online. I think it's all online. So based on that, we think that we have that covered.
Okay.
You okay, Christine? You got it?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, if this is one person, there should be some salary allocated. I mean, we're paying him. He's already done it. I don't know if it's part of his job or out of the goodness of his heart. I don't know what happens if he moves to Florida. but it sounds like we have enough, enough cushion on the revenue side potentially. I just wanted to understand better this expense.
Yeah, and this, as I remember it in the report, relates to salary for that kind of a position. And so our view was, since we already have that position in town, it's already covered, that number would fall out rather than having to hire someone. But you're right, we'll have to dig into it. It's possible that it would require additional amounts, but at this point, we think, our view is that it would fall out. Again, this is all kind of, I should have prefaced it if I didn't by saying this is all pretty preliminary. We're still digging into these numbers, but this is where we're looking at this point.
Very good, thank you.
Kathy.
Just a quick question. I'm just looking at the same chart, column A and column B and the total.
Yep.
The math doesn't look right to me.
Okay.
The only thing that's missing from column B that's in column A is $10,000.
And the 56 too. The GIS.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned that. Sorry. Thank you.
You clear, Kathy?
Well, actually, in the first subtotals, that's what I'm looking at.
Yep.
So the 44.3 versus 35.7. The only thing that's different is $10,000 in column A.
So it should be 34.3.
34.3 should be
not 35.7. Good
Correct.
catch. Good catch.
And that might change the bottom ones too, but right there,
it'll come down.
It'd come down a little bit.
Correct.
Maybe, Mike, if you need that slide, it might be germane to just make that little correction.
Oh, absolutely.
Unless there's something that had been in there that was taken out that didn't get
No,
caught.
I think, this is probably our committee kind of working fast, and maybe we just didn't, we didn't add it up. We didn't add it up correctly. So we'll work on, I wonder if the 44.3, it looks to me like the 44.3,
That's incorrect.
Might
It's
be.
40.
Yeah, I'm just adding that up now.
45,700.
the
There you go.
35.7 is correct. It's
Yep.
the 44.3 that's incorrect.
Okay.
Maybe it was CTC that made the math mistake and not us.
Yeah, well, let's hope that they didn't make other math mistakes. Okay, good catch, Kathy. Let's hear it for accounting 101 and 102.
Thanks, Kathy. We'll look into that and see if it was the CTC, if they actually made a math error.
Right. And if the town meeting ever questions what the warrant committee does in looking at numbers, we can present this as an example of a check on the rest of our colleagues in town. Okay, so the end number, probably the 42,000, is still probably accurate if I'm looking at that properly now that you've got 52, 11, 63. Yep, okay, that looks good. Any other questions? Okay, Mike, thank you very much. I think if we are finished, I think we've had the presentation, we see the numbers, we've talked about this conceptually, we now know what it's going to cost and where it's coming from. Is there any further discussion anybody wants to bring up about this article before we vote on it? I think it's time. We've talked about it, and I think we're probably ready. So if there is no further discussion, the chair will entertain a motion to approve this article as written, with the allocation coming from the PEG fund and the ARP funds as presented. Do we have a
Mr.
motion?
Chair, I'll make the motion. I
Okay.
move to
Thank you.
accept. You're welcome. I move to accept the $350,000 transfer from the PEG access fund to cover the cost of.
And the 650,000 from the ARP for a total of 1 million to be
There you go.
allocated. That's
And
right.
that's, no, I don't think
Mike.
we're voting on that. I thought we were just voting on the 350, right?
Yeah,
Mike?
we're not asking.
We're just voting on the 350. Okay, fine.
The
That makes it
650 is a
easier.
select. That would be a select board appropriation.
Okay, fine. Thank you for clarification. 350. Okay.
That's the one.
Out
I'm-
of the fund. Great. So that's the motion on the table. It's been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lynn, please take the roll. Lynn, are you there?
Unmute.
Sorry.
Oh,
John.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
JJ,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Oh, Henny,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Kristen.
Yes.
Okay, that's it.
Terrific, unanimous. I thank you very much. Next item would be to assign the comment to a member of the Warrant Committee. Is anybody interested in, Dave, thank you. You'd be willing to do this? Perfect, thank you very much. Lynn, please make a note.
George, okay if I jump?
Mike, we are grateful for your attention and your attendance as usual. Very good presentation. And yes, thank you very much. I'm sure you have lots of fun things to do.
Thanks, everyone. Much appreciated.
Good night. Yep, thank you very much. Okay, terrific. As we don't have the item from the town, from the select board on the reallocation of the budget, our next item on the agenda is the discussion of the revote on the 41 Wharf Street motion that we 41 Wharf Street article that we already approved with the addition of the plot plan that had not been part of it. So as it is a change to the article itself with the incorporation of the plot plan, we're obliged to take a revote of this. So the only change as far as I can tell, and Kevin Freytag, you're on the call, are you not still?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm right here.
Is there any other change that we have to be aware other than the addition of the plot plan?
No, it's just the recommendation now includes mention of the assessor's reference to the parcel. So it's just one more way that town meeting members will be able to identify the exact parcel that's being discussed in the article.
Perfect. So that having been said, the chair will entertain a motion to vote the revised recommendation for this Article 41 Wharf Street. This is actually the third time we've done it, but that's okay. It's Article 1. The chair will entertain a motion to approve and recommend to the town meeting for adoption Article 1 as revised. We have a motion. We have will anybody make the motion?
I'll make a motion, George, for
Terrific.
Article 1 to accept the revisions in the content of the recommendations as well as adding the map.
Terrific. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lynn, please take the roll.
John,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
JJ,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Oh, Henny,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Kristen.
Abstain.
Okay.
Thank you. Motion passes, and we'll just get that going. And we have that article recommendation. The comment, therefore, really doesn't change because the only difference, of course, is the incorporation of that plot plan. Our next item is actually something that has come up this week. You all should have received a copy of Philip Johanning's complaint that he made for our violation of the open meeting law as he went back and went through our meeting minutes for I don't know how many, I didn't even tabulate the meeting minutes and discovered that we were, quote, in violation, unquote, of not having appended a list of the documents that we referenced or used in our meetings, which is a technical violation. Now, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think we're all going to be pummeled for this, but it is a technical violation at which we have to address. Kevin Freytag, our town council, is here. He's aware of it. We have discussed it, and I will just ask Kevin to just go through the process that we have to address to make sure that we A, are in compliance, and B, address this complaint. And at some point after this we will have to delegate our response to him. So we'll have to vote on that to as a committee to authorize him to answer this on our behalf. Kevin, do you want to just go through a couple of things that you brought up and that we have to continue to consider? You're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kevin Freitag from the Office of Town Council. The chair, I think, summed it up pretty well. The open meeting law complaint before you that you've had a chance to review does allege that the meeting minutes kept by the committee are not in compliance with the open meeting law because they fail to include a list of the documents that are used. I can tell you that as a matter of law, the general laws does request or require rather a list of all documents be included in the meeting minutes. Where meeting minutes reference documents, but they don't provide a list, the best guidance that I can find from the Attorney General's office is that they strongly recommend that for the purpose of being as clear as possible to the public who might read your meeting minutes after your meeting, that they, while perhaps duplicative, include a list of documents used. So in responding to this complaint, the chair is correct that in the first instance, it's incumbent upon the chair to share the complaint with the meeting, with the committee, with the public body, for them all to have a chance to review it. And then the body can vote to authorize anyone, or in this case, town council, to respond to the complaint on behalf of the board. And as sort of a follow-up to this, it's also incumbent, I think, upon us to go back and I will do this myself, to take a look at the meeting minutes that were specifically referenced in the complaint and see whether or not they're complying with the open meeting law. And to the extent that I think that there are clarifications that need to be made, we'll come back to the board with a revised set of minutes that are compliant with the open meeting law, and ask the board to consider and hopefully approve what may only be technical revisions to the minutes themselves, but nonetheless will therefore bring the minutes into compliance. So that's a summary of what's going on here. Again, it's appropriate for the committee, if it chooses to ask that I respond to the open meeting law complaint on behalf of the committee. I can tell you, just as sort of a bit of context or by way of anecdote, almost every open meeting law complaint that comes to Milton, and there aren't frankly that many on an annual basis, but in almost every occasion, the committee authorizes the Office of Town Council to respond. So you wouldn't be doing anything out of the ordinary here tonight by asking for us, for my office to respond. Now I'll leave it at that, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
We have questions. I have some comments I'll make, but I want to leave the questions to the committee. Kathy, please.
Just one quick question. I thought the complaint also addressed timeliness of the minutes, and with that in mind, what is reasonableness in terms of getting minutes out?
So the open meeting law says that within 10 days of a request for meeting minutes, or within 10 days of the meeting having occurred, that draft minutes or approved minutes or a explanation as to why neither drafts or approved minutes are available should be made to a requester. So again, if you have a meeting and the next day someone asks for the meeting minutes, and it's very unlikely that you would have anything but draft meeting minutes at that point, within 10 days, you're supposed to either provide the draft meeting minutes or the approved meeting minutes, because maybe you have a follow-up meeting within the 10 days and approve them. Or you have to say, we don't have either, and here's why. You know, there's some set of circumstances that has prevented us from meeting. So that's responding to a request for meeting minutes. The second number that you need to keep an eye on is approving meeting minutes. And the open meeting law says that meeting minutes for a meeting that took place in open session must be approved within, and this, the language set is confusing here, but I'm quite certain on it. The minutes must be approved within 3 meetings or 30 days, whichever is later. you would think it might be earlier, but it's not. It's whichever is later. So you've got 3 meetings or 30 days, whichever is later. So typically your 3 meetings are later. If one of those deadlines, whichever is later, to actually approve your meeting minutes. So those are the 2 issues there. And that's the law on both issues.
I think it's appropriate then for me to say that the criticism that has been levied, which I kind of take, I try not to take personally, but as chair, it's hard not to, because I think all of us take some pride in what we do, and I particularly take a fair bit of pride in the organization and efficiency of this group, which is an extraordinary group of people. I will say that again, and your time is valuable. That we met. I did not tabulate the number of times where meeting minutes were not reported immediately, but we had between April and the special town meeting no fewer than 14 meetings, and some of them came right on the heels of one another in quick succession, and were reasonably complex because we were discussing issues that dealt with budgetary allocations among very sensitive departments who were looking for a lot of things that were just not available. And we had deliberations, if you all recall, and many of you were here, with the school committee, with the town, the select board, about them, which were not necessarily straightforward and which did require a great deal of attention. And our clerk does an extraordinary job of keeping meeting minutes that are detailed and direct. They're very clear. I don't think there's any question that they're substantive and that anybody who reads them would have any idea other than what we actually discussed, or would be misleading in any way, or would not be very clear as to how we voted, what we voted, how we discussed, who made what the vote, what motions, who seconded. I mean, the detail is exceptional. And having chaired, I don't know how many meetings and been on how many boards in my career, the meeting minutes that we put together are on a par with anybody I would hold up as an example. So to have a criticism levied of this nature against this committee, I find I have many adjectives I would like to use, but I'm going to be kind. I'm just saying a little bit excessive, given the value that we provide to the town as volunteers and given the magnitude of what we do over time. And I look at this as an example of criticism and energy which is devoted to a criticism which could easily be directed in more productive ways. But that's my opinion as chair. And I will take responsibility for making sure that this is done properly, but I will not take responsibility on behalf of the committee for misdeeds or any malfeasance, because I don't think in the grand scheme of things, this is worth a great deal of regret.
George, can I say something?
Go ahead, John.
Doesn't take much to figure out how this is coming about, this, where it's coming all from. What if we just ignore it?
Kevin, you can answer that one. John, you're in many respects, that occurred to me too.
It's not like the IRS.
So
well,
here,
Kevin, go ahead.
So let me just say this, and I think that notwithstanding the amount of work that the Warrant Committee does, the open meeting law applies to all public bodies, and it is such that it is there to promote a transparency at the municipal level that before the advent of the open meeting law had not existed. And so the Attorney General's office, which prosecutes offenses of the open meeting law, takes this stuff very seriously, and therefore I beckon you to do the same. Notwithstanding any of the expressions made by the chair, it is absolutely appropriate and reasonable and required by law to respond to this open meeting law complaint in a timely fashion, because the last thing that you want to have happen is evidence that there be evidence that a board is purposefully or intentionally violating the open meeting law. I don't see any reason to believe that anything like that has happened in this situation. The facts that I understand them are such that they strongly suggest that this board was burdened with an incredible amount of work and did its best to approve these minutes in a timely fashion. In fact, all the meeting minutes which are at issue or were at issue have been approved and were approved soon after these issues were brought to the attention of the board. So my best advice to you is continue to comply with the open meeting law as best you can. In this case, it means responding to the open meeting law complaint in a timely fashion and demonstrating to the Attorney General's office and others that this board has and continues to operate in good faith and in compliance with the open meeting law. That is my best advice to you as town council.
Thank you, Kevin. Dave, do you have a question or a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave Humphreys. I think as town council said, the law's the law. I read the complaint. It's probably well founded to some degree with regards to some of the details that we missed. I's that were not dotted, T's that were not crossed. We can take it as instructive of how to do a better job. And, if we were going to be subject to an open meeting complaint, I think this is the one we want. Obviously, I'm a little upset, to be challenged, to say that we're doing something wrong, that we're not following the law. But Georgia, I don't think there's an allegation of malfeasance here. I don't think there's an allegation of fraud. I don't think there's an intent to deceive. It just looks like it's it was a little bit of bureaucracy that we weren't 100% on. So again, if we are going to be subject to some type of a formal complaint, I'll take this one because there's much, much worse.
I don't disagree at all. I mean, honestly, this is an oversight. I mean, if I had been aware we had to have a specific listing, we would have done it. But I mean, that's ignorance on my part. And probably after 4 years of being chair, I should have known, but I've honest to God, not seen it in other meeting minutes. So I'll plead ignorance if nothing else. So I think you're right. I think it's something that can be corrected. And Kevin had actually, we've discussed the question of, in fact, are all of these criticisms for each particular meeting valid? Because if we are referencing the particular item that we're reviewing, whether it's a budget or an article, do we in fact have to include it in a specific list segregated at the end anyway? I think that's a question that our town council will address as part of this response to the complaint. So I think there's some interpretation that is possible as well. But I put my righteous indignation aside and say, yeah, let's fix this and get it right. Erin, you had a question or a comment. Oh, there you are. You're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a quick comment. And I just wanted to say, as somebody else who helps Lynn to take the meeting minutes, the last year that we had to do this, it was nonstop. And this is no excuse, but it was nonstop, special town meetings, meeting after meeting. They went on for hours. And all of us had family that we were trying to keep in school, educated, and doing a lot of things. So I just want to say, I believe in the law. I'm about to go to law school. Totally. I understand the complaint. But I just want to say we were dealing with a pandemic and trying to make sure our family stayed alive and stayed connected to what they had to do. So I just want to applaud our clerk. I want to applaud Lynn for what she did accomplish in the year that we spent. I can't even tell you how many hours on Zoom calls trying to help this town. So that's all I wanted to say. I understand, Mr. Freitag. I think this is, I get it, but man, did we really try our best. And thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn.
Absolutely. Oh,
Henny. Second that.
Yep, here. Oh, Henny, please.
John, I agree. I third that. I was going to also congratulate Lynn on just her continued work and you, George, on keeping us going this past year. I agree a little bit with what Dave is saying in terms of if there is substance, sure, let's hear it. So my question was, George, you kind of stole my thunder right before I came on, but as you are astute, great minds think alike. The question I wanted, Kevin, you could help us with was, we include a lot of material. We reviewed 10, sometimes 15 supplemental documents, sometimes stuff we pulled in. Are we really supposed to, and I understand, Mike just showed us three budget slides. Are we expected to attach that as well fully? Who in the world is going to go through that? I don't know. Maybe you can tell me, Mr. Chair. I'm going to spend the night watching the video or reviewing the documents. But if that's what we need to know, then we need to do a better effort to collect all these things and say, hey, Mike, send over your, all of that. There's a much more added work, I would say, if that is the case. So Kevin, if you could help us be super clear on that, that'd be appreciated.
That's a very good question. We kind of have brought that up, but Kevin, please share that with the committee.
Yeah, so I think the answer there is to err on the side of caution. The open meeting law says that you are to include a list of all documents that are used by the public body during the meeting. That word "used," as it is used in the open meeting law, is a term of art, and it basically means any document that is referenced and discussed as part of deliberations during a meeting. So if you have documents that you are reviewing during a meeting and the board or the committee is discussing the contents of those documents, then they should be listed as documents that were used during your meeting in your meeting minutes. And it would be good practice to also keep copies of those documents handy or with your minutes. They don't have to be posted with the minutes or appended to the minutes, but generally speaking, it's a good idea to have those documents available because members of the public can request them, just like they request meeting minutes. They're all public records because they're all used during your meeting. And they're even subject to the open meeting law because of the fact that they're used by the public body during the meeting and should be referenced and listed in your meeting minutes. So I guess the answer there is err on the side of caution. If you think it's been used during the meeting, then list it in your documents and keep a copy of it with the minutes.
I mean, I can see the rationale for that. I can also see that it's going to create another set of recording burdens because you have, sometimes we see them physically, sometimes they're voluminous. I'm thinking of, A, the town budget and B, the school budget, both of which are hundreds of pages. And to keep those on file, I think we can. It's just a question we'd have to reorganize ourselves a little bit to do that. Most of what we see is electronic, and certainly in the past year and a half, going on 2 years, it has all been electronic. So I don't think that's as big an issue. But if we had to go back 5 years and reconstruct it, I think we would have, it would present a very big challenge. And I'm still not sure I can appreciate the value of doing that at this point, but that's my question. So.
Well, then again, Mr. Chair, there's no requirement under the open meeting law that the documents be physically attached to the minutes. And there are also rules regarding how long public bodies have to hold on to certain records. It's not all records do not need to be forever maintained by every public body. There are retention schedules that are maintained by the archivists for the Commonwealth and through the Public Records Division. So there are a lot of, there are a lot of technical components to this, but generally speaking, if you use a document during a meeting, you need to list it in your meeting minutes, and then you need to have it be available such that it could be requested by a member of the public of the board to be produced.
Okay, well, I think that we're all clear on that at this point. And the next question is timeline for how we have to respond. When will you come back and report to us, et cetera, so we can be prepared for that?
Yeah, so the open meeting law requires that within 14 days of receiving an open meeting law complaint, that the complaint be forwarded by the chair to the members of the body, and that also within that same 14 business days, that the complaint be responded to. So this complaint was filed on,
September 8th.
September 8th. So you have until the end of the month. It's typically about 20 or 21 days. So it's probably the very end of this month before you need to actually respond to it. If it's September 8th, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, is the 28th. 20 days. So it's
Okay.
September 28th. So if you have a meeting between now and then, that'd be great. Because what we can do is we can come back to you with any revised meeting minutes and have the board look at them. I would also just by way of context again, the process here is an open meeting law complaint gets filed with the committee. The committee then has 14 days to respond. And then the person that filed the complaint, if they're not satisfied with the action taken by the board, they can then forward the complaint to the Attorney General's office. They don't have to. And in a lot of instances, if a complainant says something like perhaps there's been a technical violation of the meeting law because the meeting minutes didn't include a list or they didn't reference the documents correctly, but then remedial action is taken within the 14-day period, a lot of times the person that's filed the open meeting law complaint may say, thank you very much, that was my concern, I'm all set, and that's the end of it. If it were to go on to the Attorney General's office, what you want to be able to show the Attorney General's office is, we got the complaint, we responded to it in a timely fashion, and here's the remedial action that we took. And if the AG's office finds that sufficient remedial action was taken, they may just sort of informally respond to the complaint, or they'll do so in a manner that says, we see that there was a violation, we understand what the issue was, and that the board took quick action to respond and to correct the error. And we advise that you continue to brush up on and stay on top of the open meeting law and go about your business. That's typically how these things resolve. So it's very important that within that 14-day period, which is the 28th, that if there are any issues that we correct them. So if you have a meeting between now and then, let me know and I'll have my review of the minutes completed, and any action that needs to be taken, I'll have my recommendation on that as well as a response to this complaint.
Okay, thank you. I know that we will have a meeting I'm pretty sure we will have a meeting at least next Monday, which will be the 20th. I don't know if that gives you enough time.
That gives me enough time.
Okay, I'm hoping that will be our last one before the warrant is sent out. We may have we will probably have at least one more meeting in October before the special town meeting also. But in order for your purposes, I would think next Monday might be a good time to plan to hear about how this is all going to work out.
That works for me. I'll plan on being back at the Warrant Committee next Monday night.
Perfect. Okay, Kevin, thank you very much. Appreciate your work. We do appreciate. So I guess what we have to do is take a vote to authorize town council to proceed to respond to this complaint on the behalf of the Warrant Committee. So the chair will entertain a motion to that effect.
Mr. Chair, I move that we have town council draft a response to this complaint.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Yes, second.
Further discussion? None? Okay, Lynn, please take the roll.
John,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
JJ,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
O'Henny,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Kristen.
Yes.
Terrific. Thank you all very much. Kevin, I'm sure you and I will talk at some point in anticipation of next week's meeting. So thanks again for your help.
You're very welcome. Good night, Mr. Chair.
Good night. Good night. Our last item of business is under new business, and I just wanted to bring up to the membership. I think we've made, by the way, I think we've made all the assignments that we need to the town for the warrant for the town meeting. So I think item 6 has already been addressed. So under new business, item 7 is the actual mechanics of the Zoom meeting for the annual town meeting. I'm sorry, it's a special town meeting in October. For those of you who have been on the warrant committee for a bit, you understand how we run things, that there is a Zoom meeting for the town meeting, and then we run our own separate meeting as the warrant committee, because the warrant committee needs to be in session in order for the town meeting to convene. And so what is required is 2 devices, your home computer, your laptop, and an iPad or a phone or something to run one, and then the other you have, whether it's your phone or a laptop or an iPad, alternatively for the warrant committee meeting. So in anticipation of that, usually Erin Bradley, our secretary, takes over for Lynn to back up the chair on the warrant committee, and then Lynn actually is the support for the town meeting. And after so many years of doing it, she's got it down to a science. Again, congratulations, Lynn, for all the time and all the work that you put in. And thank you, Erin, also for sending around the Zoom notification for the warrant committee meeting. So expect to get the notification from Erin. I think it's how we've done it in the past for the Zoom, for the warrant committee meeting, which ordinarily will convene probably half an hour before the town meeting on the 25th of October. But we will meet before then. I just wanted to be sure everybody is aware of how we do things, and you can be prepared in the event that you have a second device. Lynn, please. You have your hand up.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just want to say, if you do not have two devices, please reach out to me, and between the library and the school department, we will be able to provide you a second device on which you can be part of the warrant committee and / town meeting.
Okay. Erin.
And Mr. Chair, I just wanted to remind folks that if they're not a town meeting member, that they need to let Lynn know so that we can have that special link so that we are a panelist, but not a panelist.
Correct. Thank you, Erin.
And I will say, on behalf of the town moderator, if you are an elected town meeting and a member of the warrant committee, clearly you are entitled to make comments as a town meeting member. However, it is probably, I would argue, it's probably a wise thing to refrain from commentary to the degree possible, because even though you may say I'm a town meeting member and I'm not speaking on behalf of the warrant committee, there is some discomfort that has been elicited when town meeting member and member of the warrant committee has spoken, because some of the town meeting members might interpret that commentary from a member of the warrant committee either improperly, incorrectly, inaccurately from the intent of the speaker. So I ask you to be very judicious in making comments at town meeting. I mean, in reality, in the 4+ years that I have chaired, we've only had 1 or 2 instances of this happening, but it can be awkward because some town meeting members, not as part of the warrant committee, misinterpret the intent, no matter how well it's placed, of the comment, and in some cases it could even undermine the intent of the speaker. And the last thing we want to do is have the recommendation of the warrant committee undermined when it's being discussed by the town meeting, because that just, it makes us look like monkeys. And we've got to just be really careful about that, because once we make the recommendation, it's clear that when we have a comment to the effect that the warrant committee was divided on this, it's very clear what has been said. Unless we are directly questioned by a town meeting member, our intent is out there. And I think it can be awkward. I'll just say it again, when that commentary is made. So I ask you to consider very, very carefully, if you're an elected town meeting member, to be judicious about your contribution at town meeting, apart from your membership on the warrant committee. I'm open to other people's input. If anyone has anything to add or to disagree, that's perfectly fine. But I just wanted to have that out there.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Mrs. O'Henny. I think that just having been new last year, and that there's so many mechanics. If I recall, sometimes you're trying to get in one meeting, you're trying to get in the other link. And so I appreciate your reminder, and I just would ask you to continue to remind us. I know it may feel like a bit overbearing, but I know not everyone is here tonight, and we do have new people who are not here. So just wanted to get, thank you, Lynn, for offering the second devices. That makes a big help. But this is just helpful, especially that 30 minutes before, to come in and say, let's just all make sure we know what we're doing. Because it did get hairy with the devices. And the question I had was, are we does it still look like we will not be in person? I mean, I'm looking at the Delta variant. I'm guessing that we're gonna all stay Zoom, right? Is that the foreseeable?
Yes, yes. I mean, the irony is I've seen statistic and Bob has, we actually had this conversation a bit. There are actually more cases now than there were at the annual town meeting. More cases of the Delta, probably because of the Delta or the Mu variant of COVID. And I think that we are going to be in this mode, certainly for the special town meeting. And if we have one in January, I would venture to say we probably will be there. If we have an annual town meeting in person in May, I think that would be a major step. But at this point, I think we have to anticipate certainly that the October meeting is going to be a Zoom meeting. It's going to be remote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. That having been said, the last item of business to schedule our next meeting, I think we are obliged to have one next Monday. I urge you all, I will try to have it as brief as possible because I don't think there's much that we really have to vote on short of the response to the complaint. But if the select board comes back with their recommendation for the reallocated budget items because of funds that have been reported into the town in excess of what we already voted, that will be an important vote, and it'll be interesting for us to see. But again, no guarantee that it's coming in. I hope that it will. They're supposed to meet on Wednesday, and if all goes well in their discussions between the town select board and the school committee, we may have things to talk about. So I ask your indulgence just for one more meeting next Monday. After that, we'll be able to go, once we make the assignments, we'll be able to go on a less frequent meeting schedules through October until the special town meeting. And then we'll pick it up again in November as budgets are reported in by the town for 2023 fiscal year. So that's all that I have. Is there any other new business any of the members wants to bring up? Kathy.
I saw on Facebook that Walter Timothy is going to presenting something tomorrow about Milton Academy and their lack of payment in lieu of taxes. And if the person who asked him to put this forward said that they wanted representation from the select board, the warrant committee, elected officials, town meeting members. I was just wondering if anybody on this board was going or participating.
I am unable to, but if somebody is able to go, that would be very good because this is something we have discussed now for several years.
Unfortunately, I saw it late, and I think you had to register by Friday of last week. So I'm just curious if anybody was going.
Yeah.
It's no, Mr. Chair, but it's a hearing. It's an actual legislative hearing. And so you can watch it by Zoom or you can watch it however they're doing their formatting these days. But the committee will take written testimony. So if folks wanted to write written testimony to the committee on behalf of the legislation, people can do that.
That's something we can consider because, as I say, this is an issue that we've certainly discussed here many times. So that may be something that we might be able to put our heads together on, not this meeting, but subsequently, because I think if they do have input from the town warrant committee, that could be significant. It might. I would agree. It might certainly raise consciousness. If nothing else, I don't know if it tips the balance, but it certainly raises consciousness because this is something that has been very, very important, I think, Philip, to looking at the town's finances, given the limitations that we labor under right now. Okay, thank you for bringing that up. Anything else? Hearing nothing, Chair thanks you all for your time and for your attention to these details, and again, for all the time that you spend. It's really, really a privilege to work with you. Our next meeting will be next Monday. We'll circulate the agenda and we'll probably have a few more minutes or at least one more set of minutes to approve, which we'll try to make in compliance with the open meeting law as well as we can, so we obviate any other problems going forward. So hearing that, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Lynn, do you want to take the roll, please?
John.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
JJ,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
O'Henny,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Kristen.
Yes.
Terrific. Thank you all very much. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Good night.